War Room was directed by Alex Kendrick and written by Alex and Stephen Kendrick, the Kendrick brothers, and it stars Priscilla Shirer and T.C. Stallings as a married couple, Elizabeth and Tony Jadin, as well as Karen Abercrombie as an older lady, Miss Claire. And this film is about... So how are you doing, Jessica?
Hi, Aaron. I'm doing well.
School just started recently?
Yeah, it did actually just
start. How's that going? How are your classes?
It's really good. You know, we get to cut into dead people this quarter.
Is this anatomy and physiology?
Yeah, this is anatomy and
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Can you go into that?
Right now, I'm just like trying to skin the hand, you know, with a scalpel and get all the tendons and stuff. You know, we've
and this movie opens with some war footage and a lot of soldiers gathering around the table and some voiceover, which will later be revealed as Miss Clara as she's talking about the realities of war, the violence of war, and just all the craziness and chaos and blood and violence that are involved in war. And it goes over some really nice vintage footage of war in other countries and soldiers gathering around the table. And this opening slowly transitions to a married couple probably stepping out of their house to the outside and they're bickering. Then we see this older woman, whom we presume the voiceover belongs to, Miss Clara, as she continues to talk about fighting. And we kind of presume that the rest of this movie is probably about fighting within the marital confines.
Liz is a realtor, and Miss Clara wants to sell her house. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens that Liz is her realtor to sell her house. She gets a tour of the house, and she sees all the portraits on the walls. Her favorite room of the house is her war room, otherwise known as her prayer room.
As her prayer room, yeah.
It is in the closet of her bedroom, and she gets in there every single day. She has a list of prayers on the wall. She has active lists of prayers and answered prayers around her house, which is kind of impressive. Miss Clara kind of comes in as a mentor to Liz to mentor her in her prayer life, in her family, in her marriage and stuff. You come into the movie and the marriage and the family is kind of breaking apart and stuff. And throughout the movie, the long 2 hours, you see the marriage is restored and stuff, and the family is put back together.
Also kind of happening along this side, Liz's husband, Tony, goes and works out, and he works as like an accountant for a pharmaceutical company of some kind.
No, he's a salesman.
Salesman for a pharmaceutical company. He goes to work out with a church friend, and Tony also kind of talks about his marriage problems going on with his life, and the church friend is telling him, consult God or pray. Pretty much the same advice that Miss Clara is giving Liz. Except Tony is kind of brushing it off or doesn't think it's for him or anything like that. And then we have some scenes where Liz and Tony get together in their house. They bicker a little bit or back and forth, whatever. Tony gives her the cold shoulder. He walks away and Liz is disgusted. And Liz continues to consult Miss Clara. And this movie is 2 hours long, and a movie that's all about marital strife, marital struggles, and fighting, which a lot of married couples nowadays, I think, deal with. A maximum of maybe 7 total minutes of this movie actually shows fighting in the marriage. Literally, the rest of the movie is about Liz trying to get advice about the fighting, Tony complaining about the fighting. They're both at their jobs or they're at home. And that's pretty much this whole movie about war or fighting in the household.
Yeah, I would say that probably the first 2/3 of the movie is like primarily talking and stuff, and there's a lot of like talking about something.
There's way too much of it too.
Yeah, talking about a character, talking about a situation or whatever. There's not a lot of showing, and then the last third of the movie, there's a lot of showing. And that balance is, like, very overwhelming.
It's completely thrown off.
Yeah.
For what it's trying to do.
Yeah. So in the last third of the movie, you see them praying. You see them getting together. You see all these things happen and stuff. And it's just out of balance.
I mean, it's really nice to see the prayer and to see the getting together and, forgiving and working out their differences and working out their struggles and everything like that. It just lacks reward and it lacks connection and empathy with me because I'm like, did anything happen to begin with? I didn't see anything happen to begin with. You're just talking and bickering about each other kind of off screen, apart from each other. Then you're coming together like, our marriage is going to be great. It's going to be much better. There were problems to begin with. I mean, I was missing so much from the beginning of this movie.
Yeah. I would have to add that there's a vast dichotomy to this movie. The dichotomy is that, like, for me personally, I believe in the principles of this movie. I believe
Definitely.
that when you dig deep in prayer, when you seek God and seek His Word and seek His understanding, when you sit still in His presence, that amazing things can happen. Prayer is the time for allowing God to work, is essentially what I've been described, And I think that this movie is trying to portray the power of prayer and stuff, and I think it's very noble for trying to view that.
Definitely.
On the other hand, we didn't even finish it. It was so bad. It was so uninteresting.
I was bored through probably the last half hour or hour of this movie.
Okay, so we didn't finish it. We didn't see the ending. So I'm going to predict the ending. And
I can predict it too.
We have no idea what happens. I think
Alex Kendrick comes up and says, JK, it's not a real movie. End credits. That's how this movie ends.
I think that the jump rope competition, that the daughter wins the jump rope competition.
I'm so proud of you for everything that you've done, and I can't wait to see what you guys do out there.
We're getting started right now with the speed round. Here we go. Cheer, let's hear it for the Speed Angel.
The marriage is saved.
Okay.
I think that miraculously, Tony gets a job, maybe through a connection of his old employer. Maybe they hire him back miraculously in a different department or something.
He runs into that other problem of lying to his employer with, fake stuff they did, pharmaceutical supplies he didn't take account for.
Yeah, that was a side plot. Yeah,
It was an extra plot. It was an extra problem that they threw into the movie, and then Liz and Tony are praying, "Oh, please, just let us be forgiven. Just let this whole problem be forgiven." And the pastor comes in. It's like a drum roll type of moment. You're okay. Oh, thank God.
That was God's grace toward us. Thank you, Jesus.
Where did that come from?
That was a horrible side plot.
I don't get it.
I mean, okay, here's the other dichotomy of Christian movies. You have God's Not Dead, and they are subplot driven. And then you have this movie, and it's like all of a sudden this subplot bites you in the butt and stuff. But usually what we expect is that the subplot is sprinkled throughout the movie and stuff. And maybe it was sprinkled and I didn't pick it up. Wow.
Okay, well, here's the thing. When it comes to not sprinkled very, very well, I would say the story wasn't stitched together very well at all.
No.
There's a very, very lacking story here. It's a very incohesive kind of story, and there's some kind of a problem with the marriage, and they're trying to work it out on the side, and then Liz and Tony come together to try to work it out, and then of course we introduce the new problem with Tony going on. So what story? What's going on here? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, the story is following the life and marriage of this family and stuff, and it's trying to document the power of God, and that's very noble.
It's oversaturating.
I think I
the
saw.
word of God.
I think I saw something written.
Did you see my little note about?
I think I saw something.
It's not a story. It's just
not
all
a
about
story.
speaking and preaching it out and speaking out all these this great message about prayer and about God. I think I'll go ahead and just show. This is literally all I have about the faith aspect. So we have big, bold, capitalized message in your face. Nearly every single scene is about the big, capitalized, bold message in your face. And then right underneath that, we got, I think, a tiny, tiny writing. I have story.
But I'm asking you, please, don't let him do this.
Play King of the Arctic. It's Norm. No, is that character? That's characters right there. And then even smaller writing underneath the story, we have characters.
So take your lies, your schemes, and your accusations and get out in Jesus' name.
Stop that! This movie sucks! And then just even tinier beneath that, I think I have movie.
You can't have my marriage. You can't have my daughter. And you sure can't have my man. This house is under new management. And that means you are out.
Like the thing.
Do you see where the priorities are falling in this movie? All about the message, all about the preaching, all about the faith, all about prayer. Hardly anything about story, hardly anything about flesh and blood, characters, people, hardly anything about making up a movie, a film. Message! This movie is all about the message, and that's what really bored me, and that's what completely pulled me out of it. And I was thinking if I saw a little bit more of the problem going on with the fighting in the marriage, a little more of the problem in the going on between Tony and Liz, then maybe I'd be invested in let's see how we can solve this problem. Let's see how this movie can attempt to show how we can deal with marital strifes. We don't see the problem happening. We don't see the actual bickering and fighting. I was expecting like a 10-minute, maybe a 5 or 10-minute actual scene of Liz and Tony having an actual like marital fight. And then we see, okay, here's how we're going to solve the problem. They're just talking about the preaching and the prayers and how God can help to solve all these problems going on in the marriage. But I'm not connected or invested with the solution because I'm not seeing any problem being illustrated. Mm-hmm. I may have said that for like the third time in this review, but that's how much I want to stress it, and that's how stressed out I am by this movie.
Yeah. I would like to add that when you have a movie that's not based off of a story, things can easily get out of balance or become unrealistic and stuff. One key aspect that I was thinking about today was about the characters of Liz and Tony. So one thing that I see very common in Christian films is that they're loaded with stereotypes and stuff. And if you look at God's Not Dead, for example, I feel like that they take a lot of people and they put one stereotype on them. For example, all the non-Christian characters
Are bad people?
Are jerks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are going after the good Christian people who have everything right.
Exactly. All the non-Christian characters are jerks. And in this movie, you have kind of the opposite. You have a lot of stereotypes focused on one character and stuff. Tony. I feel like that offends me, you know. I feel like that the way that they portray him as a husband, as a father, as a black man is insulting. I think what they do at the end of the movie is just dust their hands off and say, well,
we did it!
He developed as a character.
Because we say so, because we the creators say so.
Yeah.
Even if the audience doesn't experience it, we the Christian screenwriters say so.
Exactly. One thing that I was thinking about earlier today was like some of the fight scenes. You know, I feel like that you would see more fight scenes.
They needed to flesh all of that out because that was the principal problem. That was the principal conflict in the story and the script aspect. The principal conflicts that they could have fleshed out a lot more. Right? Yeah,
and I feel like that, like especially in the conflicts, in the fight scenes, you would see more like bitterness and more anger. You would see more lashing out.
Yes.
You would see her insulting
I wanted to see as ugly as that is to experience, I wanted to see that because I knew this movie wants to bring it up and it's not bringing any of that up.
It's not bringing it up. It's not bringing up what really happens in life.
It spends like 30 seconds every 5-6 scenes with, I don't like this about you, why don't you do this thing, and done.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Miss Clara, or back to the workout gym, or back to their jobs.
You know, I just thought of something just now. Like, this movie brushes over what actually happens in a marriage, kind of like Sunday Christian people brush over real problems in their real lives. Like, do you ever feel like that when you go to church that it's not exactly real, that we're all just... In the words of John Green, we're all just paper people in this paper building in this paper town, and we're just passing paper notes of paper communication to each other.
What the heck? Shout out to John Green.
Some of the things that I wrote down were I wanted to see more of the daughter and stuff.
Yes.
We didn't see... I mean, the daughter was very much a background character. We didn't see much of her. See her pain of, like, as she looks in the audience, she doesn't see her parents. See her pain that when she wins an award, there's no one to hug her when she gets home. Just see more of that.
Instead of the characters just talking about it and talking about, I'm struggling with this in my everyday life and you're never there for me.
Yeah.
When I didn't see any of that happen, I don't understand why the characters feel sorry for themselves.
Yeah. I think that there were two characters, one of them I cannot think of. There's like two characters that were only talked about that were not actually shown. And that gets awkward.
That supposedly had a role in the movie. That supposedly had a role with the characters' problems. And they're always talked about, they're always texting or whatever. We never see them in the flesh. They're never on screen. They never play a physical part in their lives.
Yeah, like, that's very awkward to have Miss Clara, like, talk about her son, like, a lot and not see him. I wrote down a list of show but no tell. So what do you want to see more of? Do you have a list like that?
I just literally, I think 2 or 3 times I literally just wrote show, don't tell. Or showing, not telling. Or constantly, they're constantly talking about this. Movie doesn't show any of this. Nothing of this happens in the story.
My list is, because I wrote a specific list, answered prayers. You know, in the beginning of the film, you see that it's like this picture frame of prayers that were asked and prayers that were answered, which is really cool because there's like, I mean, there is some Christians who like keep that list.
I mean, that is a little bit of a past aspect to Miss Clara.
We don't see a lot of her actually in the war room. Like, I think that there's
praying in the war room.
Yeah, I think that there's maybe 1 or 2 shots of her actually praying in the war room. I would have liked to see more of that. And I have a comparison to make with Everything is Illuminated. It's one of my favorite movies, Everything is Illuminated. Everything is Illuminated is about this Jewish American young man who travels to Ukraine to find his grandfather's old village that he lived in from before World War II. So Jonathan is a collector, and at the beginning of the movie, you get that sense, you get this visual sense that this is his hobby. You know, as he's at his grandfather's deathbed, as he's at his grandmother's deathbed, in Everything is Illuminated, you get a clear sense of this character's hobby, of who this character is like. War Room was starting off like that.
A little bit like that.
It was. It had a really nice intro, and I feel like that they could have expanded the intro
a whole lot on that,
to include this character's hobby of prayer. Suddenly, you have this main aspect, just like Everything is Illuminated. You get this main aspect of prayer, and in the end, you realize why it's so important. You know, I feel like that a real movie with real drama digs deep into the problems and stuff.
But I think just to go back to the story aspect, you mentioned drama just a second ago, which this movie doesn't have. And intensity, which fighting usually has in a marriage. This movie doesn't have any of that. And it has quite a few out-of-place scenes, like a robbery scene or a threatening scene.
Oh my gosh.
Friends before my job.
Give me your money right now. Did you hear me? Both of you, give it to me now.
Okay, we will. Just please put the knife down.
Do it, and do it now.
No. Now you put that knife down right now in the name of Jesus.
Why did you remind me of that?
Okay, I'm going to jump back to, there's a dream sequence that comes out of nowhere. Tony's about to go to bed or something like that, asks his daughter to bring his gym clothes, and then we go to black, and then he sees this guy threatening his wife, and then goes to try to attack the guy, looks at his face, oh, who are you? Then when he wakes up and he falls out of bed, he's in his gym clothes already.
Wait, no. The point of that scene, there's a man attacking his wife.
Yeah.
He, like, turns around, and it's himself. You didn't catch that?
This was a missed opportunity. War Room was a missed opportunity to talk about prayer and to talk about these real struggles and fighting that that this married couple are having, but it doesn't show any of that. There's no story to engage us in. There are no characters to really connect to us and to connect to us to the problem, and to see that the preaching and the praying, as important as they are, as you were saying, are the great solutions to this problem. None of that is even shown, and this movie just doesn't even hold up, and it all falls apart, and my words are falling apart as I continue on. We didn't even finish this movie. I don't want to finish this movie. If anybody has finished this movie, I would like to hear how does it end, if it ends. I honestly didn't want to give this grade to any movie. I was holding it back. I wanted to be generous with maybe a D or a D minus. That's being generous. I can't think of at least maybe two good aspects about the movie. I'm going to have to give War Room an F. Had a great opportunity at the get-go, set up a great opportunity at the get-go, and
falls apart.
Didn't follow through with it.
Nope.
Very disappointed.
Yep.
Any grade from you? Any concluding thoughts from you?
Well, it's an F. Didn't finish it. And
I think we both... What?
We were drinking at the time.
Okay, well, hopefully good luck next time. Maybe this review maybe our cohesive talk with this holds up. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it kind of falls apart along with the rest of this movie. Well, we just got as much of our thoughts out as we could. I got as much of my thoughts out as we could. But thanks for watching us, and we hope that we can hold ourselves up with the next movie that we watch. And we hope to see you guys next review.
Bye!